Beneficent, the merciful, all praise is due to Allah, the Lord of all the worlds. We want to welcome our friends in South Africa, the United States, and around the world to this week's edition of A Conversation with El-Hajj Mauri Saalakhan. I'm pleased to be your host, coming to you once again through the Salam Media platform out of Johannesburg, South Africa. Salam Media is an online portal for humanitarian journalism. We don't just report the news, we advise you on what you can do about it. Today's hot topic for our listeners and viewers this afternoon in the United States, this evening in South Africa, is revisiting the political imprisonment of Imam Jamil Abdullah Amin, the former H. Brown. A major mobilization effort is scheduled to take place in Tucson, Arizona, 2 weeks from today, on Sunday, August 15th, inshallah. We're going to talk about this national mobilization and the circumstances that lead up to it. In the collective view of many of his supporters, including yours truly, Imam Jamil is a political prisoner who has been wrongfully imprisoned now for 21 years. With that being said, I want to begin today's broadcast with a few words from my first guest. He's going to be with us for just a very short period, Imam Jamil's son, attorney and entrepreneur, Khairi El-Amin. Assalamu alaikum, brother Khairi.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah, brother Saalakhan. I appreciate you as always.
I appreciate you, my brother. Alhamdulillah.
Yeah,
how are you doing? How are you doing?
I'm doing all right. I'm actually, my mother came down to visit me here in Miami where I moved. And so I'm actually out at lunch with her before I take her to the back to the airport. But she came to visit me just partially for the reasons I discussed with you in the text message. I'm going through some things. And like you said, we're revisiting again, my father's situation. And as far as I'm concerned, a lot of times people lose sight of the fact that this is my father's situation. So every time I revisit it, I have to relive it. You know what I'm saying? And so it's gotten to the point where it's a lot, but the work got to continue, but I still kind of have to be able to manage my highs and lows. So alhamdulillah for folks like yourself, like Sister Maha, and many, many others who have stepped up and been, the blessing and the help that we've been praying for, alhamdulillah. So I definitely appreciate that. And I appreciate this because, as you said, we're in the process of mobilizing a large event out in Tucson, Arizona, where the Imam has been held for the last, 6, 7 years. And he's been neglected medically. He's been mistreated. He's continuously mistreated, not just by that facility, but by the federal government and the state government who are in charge of his incarceration, from the fact that he can't get proper medical treatment to the fact that he's not even supposed to be housed in a federal facility, especially not one that's across the country away from his family, his attorneys, while he has an open and active investigation going on into his case. And so really this Tucson rally and event is us saying enough is enough and showing that there is still real, tangible support for the Imam. And we've been doing that. And again, so I'm very thankful for that. But I just wanted to make sure that I popped in and spoke and also gave the audience an understanding of why sometimes I'm not available for speaking engagements, and it's not because I don't want to be. It's because sometimes I just can't. Sometimes I just can't. I got to be able to recharge. So alhamdulillah, again, I say, I'm thankful for Sister Maha because she's able to step into roles like this, and so is Wasik Javid down in Texas, who was a big organizer for us for this rally, and many more. So, shukran, alhamdulillah, and inshallah, we'll get to see the Imam on this side of the wall before this thing is all over, thanks to all of our efforts.
Okay, alhamdulillah. Brother, please give my salams to your mother, Sister Karima, and, alhamdulillah, I'm glad, we with what took place with the young tennis star, her name escapes me at the moment,
Simone Biles.
No. Simone is the
the tennis, Naomi
tennis.
Osaka.
Yes. Huh?
Naomi Osaka.
Naomi, yes, Naomi, and now with the young sister in the Olympiad, who has been on the margins, mashallah ta'ala, making a very important statement. I am so proud. I am so proud when I hear folks who especially are under a huge spotlight for whatever the reason might be, who have the intelligence to take their health, self help, vis-a-vis your health, making it the priority that it's supposed to be. You can't help anyone else, whether it be a family member or a non-family member who is close to you, who you feel passionate about, unless you're able to take care of yourself. So may Allah Ta'ala fortify you, Brother Kyrie. And, you have been the jumpstart. You have been a very important jumpstart for getting renewed attention brought to your father's case. And, there's a tremendous amount of barakah in just being that trigger. But beyond that, may Allah Ta'ala to continue to fortify you. I know that you will be in the struggle until your father is free. And, but you have to also take care of yourself. So, may Allah Ta'ala bless you. May Allah fortify you. And as they say in South Africa, from which this broadcast is being aired live, aluta continua, the struggle continues. MashaAllah.
Amin.
So any parting words before you go?
No, just shukran, man.
Right.
That's where I'm at with it.
Alhamdulillah.
Shukran. I appreciate
All right.
who are there to be appreciated. Shukran.
Okay, my brother. Thank you for being with us.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Okay. Now we're going to get into the meat and potatoes of this afternoon's conversation. The sister that you see before you, brothers and sister friends of Facebook, of Twitter, and all of the other social media platforms that this broadcast is being seen live over, as well as those who will see it later. This beautiful face on the other side is Sister Maha El-Kolali. Esquire. She is an attorney. She is a solo practitioner in the areas of family law and civil litigation. She is part of Imam Jamil's legal team and has worked closely with Imam Jamil's son, Kyrie, El-Amin, who you just heard from. She is also working with the Constitutional Law Center and for Muslims in America and the National Muslim organizations to coordinate efforts to assist in Imam Jamil's case. In addition to this, our sister is a public speaker and an adjunct professor at the Shepherd Broad College of Law at Nova Southeastern University. Prior to attending law school, she was a child protective supervisor with ChildNet, a family department of children, and a counselor for the Department of Children and Families, and she served as a government analyst for the Department of Juvenile Justice. She is a graduate of the State University of New York in Albany, graduating summa cum laude with a degree in psychology and in sociology. She also graduated magna cum laude, receiving her JD from Nova Southeastern University Shepherd Broad Law School. Maha has been recognized with various awards and honors, including the Women of Impact Award, resulting in Miami-Dade County proclaiming March 13th, 2018, Maha El-Kolali Esquire Day. She is also a recipient of the Greatness of Service Award, the CARE Florida Community Service Award, the Helping Hand Award, and the State of Florida Child Advocate of the Year Award. Now, I wanted to share all this, brothers and sisters, both because this is her first time being with us as a guest on this platform, but also to underscore the point that the audience has been served notice that we have a deeply committed representative for today's challenging topic. With that said, a formal assalamu alaikum to my sister Maha, Attorney Maha.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Sister Maha is just fine. Hajj Mauri.
Okay.
Fine.
Okay, first question out of the box is, how did you become aware of and later involved in the case of Imam Jamil Abdullah Amin, the former H. Ramp Brown? And why? And why did you choose to become involved?
Okay, subhanallah, you know, Allah. Well, let me start with Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalam ala Sayyidina Muhammad. You know, I'm a believer that Allah puts us in positions and in places to guide our footsteps to what we are supposed to be doing in our lives. Everybody has a calling, everybody has a purpose, and I believe in paying attention to signs. So in the 90s, of course, I grew up in Imam Jamil at a time when Imam Jamil was free, and he would be at ISNA conventions and we would hear from him, and he was a very respected scholar to us. He clearly loved the youth. He was able to surpass cultural differences, age differences. He was just exemplary in his leadership. And he had the utmost respect from all of us. So him being taken from the community impacted so many people because he had a way of connecting with us. So over the years, I would randomly ask, but there was this presumption that this giant of ours, right? This leader of our community, this former Black Panther, this civil rights activist, this human rights activist, this man who stood up for so many humanitarian causes. There was just this presumption that, of course, he must have the best legal lineup, you know, that there's nothing we could do. I'm sure he was supported, you know, abundantly by an extensive legal team. So fast forward in law school, I would ask here and there, and they would just give brief answers. You know, he's incarcerated, there's an appeal, but nothing too in depth. Like the information was scarce. So it wasn't until, I'm trying to remember, I think ICNA with Imam Khalid Briggs, I think, did an event with Wasik Javed and Kyrie. And it was similar to this kind of situation. And they were going through action items that students for Imam Jamil had formulated, where you can write letters and the letters were already drafted and you literally copy paste the email. And it was the easiest, simplest, most expeditious way to advocate for some way, in some way, for this giant civil rights leader that we have left. So when I saw that, I was, you know, encouraged to reach out to Kyrie, and they said that they wanted to pass on the word, and we did another one here for South Florida. But you know, I ended up talking to Kyrie a little bit more, and to his beautiful mother, may Allah bless her. And I came to find out that there wasn't much of a legal team, and that at that time there was an appeal that was pending, and Imam Jamil was losing his sight, or he had lost it in one eye, and that his medical condition was deteriorating. And I wondered, you know, where are our Muslim organizations? Why don't we know that this is happening? Why aren't we advocating for him? So we pulled a team of, I called every Muslim lawyer that I know, and I said, we need to do something. And that's when we reached out to Charlie, and we ended up wanting to file a federal suit. So one thing led to another, and it ended up being this, you know, we have meetings to pull everyone together because not one person can do this job. It's clearly overwhelming for the family. Even in my short journey, it's these ups and downs, and you get little wins, and then you get people pushing back, and it is an emotional roller coaster. So they shouldn't have to do this on their own. So it's an honor. It's an honor to serve this family and to advocate for Imam Jamil in any way that we can.
Mm-hmm. How important is what took place in a federal courthouse in Atlanta in 2019? Vis-a-vis actions that have been taken since that 2019 decision, including what is scheduled now to take place on the 15th. First of all, how important was what happened in Atlanta in 2019 when that decision came through the federal court, when the Imam was trying to get relief on the basis of the violations that had taken place in his constitutional rights?
And I think to answer that, is it okay, Hajj Mauri, if we go back to the trial and the details?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes,
so I'm going to take it back a little bit. And many people, even myself, I didn't realize how egregious these constitutional violations were in the trial. So in the initial trial, there are several discrepancies that are just kind of shocking to the conscience, and although he had a legal team, and it was a good legal team, they were just block after block after block, not being able to question critical witnesses, not being able to put confessions, presenting confessions by a third party, by Otis Jackson, to the jury. Those critical pieces of evidence never came before the jury at that trial. So number one, the fact that Imam Jamil's description, the description of the assailant that day by both deputies, was that there was a man who was 5'9", had cold gray eyes. Imam Jamil towers over 5'9" at 6'5", right? And he has brown eyes. But the description clearly depicts the person who has confessed. You have Otis Jackson constantly over 20 years confessing over and over in sworn written affidavits. We now have, if you go to what happened to the number 2, what happened to rap.com, you can watch the confession that Otis Jackson made at a different trial under oath. He is extremely consistent. There is evidence corroborating that confession. He has the injuries to show it. The officers initially were adamant that they shot the assailant, that he was injured. And when they retrieved Imam Jamil in Alabama, he had no bullet wounds and no injuries from that day. So Otis Jackson does have those bullet wounds. The ballistics, the faulty ballistics, the forensics expert, it was Bernadette Davy. And at that time, she was still the forensics expert on this case. But since then, she was fired for faulty ballistics. And we now come to find that there were several cases that had faulty ballistics that she presented and resulted in wrongful convictions of other inmates and prisoners. So there are several injustices. The closing argument. So there was a closing argument in the trial. Imam Jamil took the advice of his counsel, which is very common, not to take the stand in a criminal case. And he chose not to testify at the trial. And although he wanted to, I must say that he did want to testify at the trial, he took counsel's advice, did not testify at the trial. And the prosecuting attorney ended up doing a mock cross-examination, which at least one juror now has signed a sworn affidavit stating that closing argument, which is a clear violation of Imam Jamil's Fifth Amendment rights, led to his conviction. So these are all very, very big details. Imam Jamil had no gun residue on him. There's no DNA putting him at the site. There's no fingerprints putting him at the scene. There was FBI involvement in a state investigation, and the FBI agent insisted on being involved in the arrest and crossing state lines. He happens to be the person who also retrieved the weapons. There's a document from an FBI FOIA request that states that those weapons appeared to be placed. That evidence never was presented before the jury because they didn't have the evidence at that time. So there is room for an appeal at this time. There is a new case and new case law that specifically names this case, and there is an appellate brief that has been filed and is pending. However, we're waiting for the Conviction Integrity Unit at this time in Fulton County to complete their investigation into the case, because obviously that's a more expeditious way to exonerate the Imam.
Indeed. And Sister Maha, I met Otis Jackson. I met him not long after the trial ended. On the trip to the Atlanta area, I visited with, in fact, well, before I even made it to Atlanta, I had received a call from a good brother out of the Atlanta area, well-known and respected Muslim chaplain, Imam Furqan Muhammad. He had contacted me to say that he had a prisoner that I needed to talk to. You know, he said that the person who has confessed to being the one who actually got into the shootout with the sheriff's deputies that led to the imprisonment of Imam Jamil, he approached him. And I guess this was shortly after he had been transferred to this other prison, because my understanding of Otis Jackson is that he has been in and out of prisons and jails in different parts of the country. So anyway, he wanted to know when I was going to be in Atlanta next, and I was in Atlanta not long after that telephone conversation, and I went into the prison with him, and lo and behold, Otis Jackson, he wanted to give me a statement, a written statement, once again indicating that he was the one that got into the shootout with the sheriff's deputies, and he quite frankly didn't expect that Imam Jamil was going to be successfully tried and convicted for it, because number one, he knew that he didn't do it, and also because of Imam Jamil's prominence. He just thought that there was no way he was going to be convicted for something that he didn't do. But he was, and as you've stated, and I'm a witness to it, Otis Jackson has made repeated confessions, including one on the witness stand in another case where he was cross-examined, and the prosecutor that was cross-examining him ended up having to ask for a recess in order to recover from what wasn't what he expected to be the end result of that cross-examination. Otis Jackson, as you well know, comes across as a very as an intelligent, a very lucid confessor to a crime that someone else has been convicted of, charged and convicted of. With that said, you've been involved in this case, and you are sensitive to the fact that there hasn't been as much communal attention and support for Imam Jamil as there should have been from day one. And I mentioned in my brief remarks yesterday during that prayer event that you all organized for Imam Jamil in the lead up to what's going to happen in 2 weeks. I had indicated how, subhanAllah, when this thing first went down, I remember being in the Dar Hijra Islamic Center when it first went down. Imam Jamil was, there was an all points APB out for him among a number of police agencies, local, state, federal. I mean, they were after him. He was not yet in custody. And there was a meeting that was called for area leaders and activists and to discuss, actually, first of all, to follow, what was happening with this chase, this pursuit of Imam Jamil. And there was, of course, prayers on the lips and in the hearts of probably everyone present that Imam Jamil be able to be taken into custody without being shot and killed. we were together for at least 2 hours. It might have been longer than that, at least 2 hours. And it was a crowded library space of the Islamic Center. And I can very distinctly remember the point where word came through that Imam Jamil had been spotted and that they were in hot pursuit of him. And, that's really when the du'as became even more intense, and alhamdulillah, he ended up being taken into custody in large part because of an African-American law enforcement officer who knew him, had known him for years, had known of the good work that he had done in the South, in Whitehall, Alabama, and other parts of the South. And he advised Imam Jamil to get on the ground. And he ended up cuffing him. And, one of the revealing points that came out of that was after Imam Jamil was cuffed and laying prone on the ground, the FBI officer who had formerly been in Philadelphia before he was transferred to Georgia, an FBI officer who had shot and killed a young black male in Philadelphia under questionable circumstances.
And planted the gun.
And planted the gun. He was accused of planting a gun, and he got away with it. Got a transfer to Atlanta, Georgia, probably a promotion as part of a task force there. He was so enraged when he came upon Imam Jamil already in custody, laying prone on the ground, that he kicked him and spit on him. And so there's no question about it that if this maniac or someone like him had reached Imam Jamil first, he would have been dead. No question about it. He would have been shot and killed and case closed. But, we are where we are now, thanks to the fact that there have been a few that have not allowed this case, this terrible injustice that has been going on now for 21 years to be forgotten. New life has been breathed into this campaign for Imam Jamil, and now we have what is going to be taking place in Arizona in 2 weeks. What are your thoughts on what the prospects are for benefit to come out of this mobilization? And also, you shared a bit of good news with us last night concerning Imam Jamil's vision challenges. You might want to.
Yes. Okay. So, it's a miracle. I kind of want to reflect on what you just said first before I reflect on what's coming up. But it's an absolute miracle that Imam Jamil did not die that day.
Yes.
And it was divine intervention. Like, I definitely believe I didn't know you all were praying in the background like that as in unison, but the officer was very clear, get down or the FBI will kill you. And, this goes a little bit, and I know I don't want to jump the gun, but right now with Bobby Rush introducing the COINTELPRO Full Disclosure Act, right? This is all tied to that.
Right.
And, the majority of those individuals who were listed as a quote unquote threat through COINTELPRO and J. Edgar Hoover's COINTELPRO have already been killed. They are leaders that we respected, that we loved, and they are gone. And Imam Jamil is, one of the few, if not the only one still standing. And we have to fight for him. So it's a miracle that he's alive, because they absolutely wanted him dead, and they still do everything that they can to instill harm or to delay treatment. So this is an ongoing issue. So as far as what is coming up, this rally or this press conference is, a lot led up to it. And when you are demanding something as simple as cataract surgery, and when you see medical records that are shocking to the conscience. When you see an elderly man who in 2017, his medical chart says he may suffer severe glaucoma, it must be monitored very closely, and they neglect it and they don't do any of those tests at all from 2017 until 2021 when we intervened. There is something wrong. This is basic medical treatment. Cataract surgery is something that many aging people will need, if not most aging people. Imam Jamil is 77 years old. So in 2018, every visit to the optometrist or ophthalmologist show that he needed cataract surgery. And the response was that he was put on the list. So he wasn't denied it. He's just put on some list. And no one knows his spot on the list. All we know is that there were other inmates that were getting it and he was not getting the surgery. So they allowed him to go blind in one eye. So this is from 2018, way pre-COVID, right? And we go into 2019, nothing. They're not ruling out glaucoma. They leave him to go blind in one eye. 2020, we're starting to move, get the medical records to look at them, get our expert to look at them. They still won't give him the surgery. He, in the process of filing this, loses vision in his second eye. So he is completely blind. He can't navigate the prison without assistance. He's getting injured while he tries to navigate the prison. He can't read any of the legal documents. He can't sign documents. He doesn't know what he's signing. So essentially, he's blind for several months. We send demand letters. Nothing happens. We file suit. You know, they still drag their feet till the final hour. And alhamdulillah, this week we got word and confirmation that he had surgery in one eye. And of course, this is after we had started planning the press conference in front of the prison. And he can see now out of one eye. So the second eye is pending. So the federal lawsuit is still in place. We're hoping that ultimately it'll be dismissed so that he can, you know, if he gets his vision in his second eye and they do what they should have done 3-4 years ago. But imagine he has a long list of medical needs. This is just one of them. Imagine how neglected medical needs are. He's at a level 3 facility. He's categorized as needing a level 4 for his intense medical needs. And they just continue to neglect him. Mm-hmm. So we should be appalled at this. So at the end of the day, the process is very slow. And it was time. It was time to go in front of the prison. It was time. We felt that we need to bring light to this situation. We need people to get involved. And, you know, with Representative Bobby Rush introducing the COINTELPRO Full Disclosure Act, Imam Jamil's case falls within that. He is a political prisoner, and this is an extension of COINTELPRO, and this is a wrongful conviction. So it's time to bring light to these issues and to correct the wrongs historically that this country has done. There are several political prisoners that fell within this type of unconstitutional investigative probes that J. Edgar Hoover put in effect, and we need to correct this wrong. So I'm excited. It's the first time we see national organizations really come together. There's a beautiful list of orgs. The United States Council of Muslim Organizations is getting involved. ISNA is now on board. ICNA, MANA is involved. So we're seeing now the people moving up and stepping up to this and wanting to advocate for him. And it gives a lot of hope to the family, to us. And these are the moments that we realize, like, okay, we're not fighting this fight alone, you know, and the family's not fighting this fight alone. And it encourages Imam Jamil. And you know, you have to, hope is such a valuable asset to have. Like, if you lose hope, you lose everything. So him seeing everyone support him and us going all the way to the doors of the prison and saying, hey, we are here. You may not see us, but we stand with you. We demand justice. We demand your proper medical treatment. We demand your transfer back to Georgia where he can, you know, have access to his legal team, have access to the conviction integrity unit that really needs to interview him, have access to his family, and these could be his final days. He's old, he's medically fragile. Now he could see out of one eye, but he was blind for some time. And ultimately, we demand his exoneration. Enough is enough. He did 21 years. This is a state prisoner being held in federal custody. It's unheard of. And he spent how many years underground in the Supermax facility with the window literally at the ceiling of his cell in isolation. Anybody who suffered, that's disgusting. It's a violation of his Eighth Amendment right. It's cruel and unusual punishment. This man has suffered. And when he finally got out of the Supermax facility, his transition to USP Tucson, I mean, he was hospitalized because of his treatment in that transition. This is unacceptable. This is unacceptable. So it's time we make a statement. It's time we make a unified statement. Yesterday's prayer session was because, we believe that behind every human rights fight, behind every intention for advocacy for humanity, there must be a spiritual foundation, because there are things we don't understand. And I'm a strong believer that Allah guides us, and we need that guidance in this fight. We need that guidance in this fight.
Absolutely. And there's no question in my mind that, given the timing of him finally getting that surgery after several years requests, it coming against the backdrop of what no doubt the authorities are well aware is a mobilization brewing for, to take place outside the gates of the prison that holds him in Tucson, Arizona. That this wasn't by coincidence.
No, they're very aware. They listen to the phone calls, so they're very, very aware.
So, alhamdulillah, this is it's an example of what good can come out of agitative pressure, and this is what we need to have more of. Now, on this point, Bobby Rush is a Congressman. Bobby Rush, he is a former Black Panther from the Illinois chapter, and so clearly he is expected to have sensitivities around issues like COINTELPRO and it's the effects of it, the lingering effects of it, all the way into the year 2021. But with that said, has he or any of the other members of the Congressional Black Caucus, or any of the, either of the two members of the small Muslim delegation, or no, three persons within the Muslim delegation on Capitol Hill, have they said anything or done anything specifically for Imam Jamil? Do you see any possibility that something can come from them to help take the pressure campaign to another level?
Yes, we're definitely hopeful of that. This is one of those questions I wish Wasik was on, because he is the one that is reaching out to everyone who signed on to that bill. Mm-hmm. I don't know what the number is now. I think last I checked it was at 22, but I haven't looked recently. So we have made contact with each and every person who's supporting the COINTELPRO Full Disclosure Act, and they have made, I think, at least, and don't quote me on this, but I believe that Bobby Rush's office has made contact with Kyrie. So that is, it's slow moving because everyone is so busy, but they are aware of what we're doing. And we are really just trying to push to get something concrete from them. So the hope is that we get a letter with all of them signing on, urging Fulton County to really investigate this confession and to look at the evidence and to expedite, the process through the Conviction Integrity Unit.
Now, speaking about Fulton County, Maha, the now sitting district attorney for Fulton County had indicated during her campaign that if she was elected, which she has been, she would be willing to, look into the case of Imam Jamil. Has anything of substance taken place on that level, to your knowledge?
Yeah, absolutely. So Fani Willis has held good to her promise. The case was reopened after her election, so we do appreciate that. And they did designate substantial time to look at this case. Obviously, this case is voluminous. There is a lot of evidence, and unfortunately, some of the evidence it's 21 years old. You know, there's ballistics that need to be looked at. And things that need to be located. So she is holding true to that. It is reopened officially through the Conviction Integrity Unit, and it's
Right.
just a process, and we're waiting it out. But they
Great.
are they're in you know, there is conversations and there's dialogue, so it is open and active.
You know, it is so unfortunate and such a it's a shameful mark on the legacy of the previous occupant of that office, Paul Howard, that he didn't have the integrity and the courage to look into the case himself. I never forget, you know, well, part of it has to do with the fact that he basically made his dibs, so to speak, on the back of Imam Jamil back when this case first erupted. He was involved, and the lead prosecutor, I forgot what his name is now, but he was rewarded with a post within the U.S. Department of Justice as a result of this case, the outcome of the case. But both of them, they made their dibs off of prosecuting Imam Jamil, and despite the evidence that came to fore suggesting that a terrible miscarriage of justice had taken place. I mean, he had chosen to basically engage in a cover-up for many years. I remember when former U.S. ambassador to the UN, former mayor of second African-American mayor of the city of Atlanta, Andrew Young, civil rights icon in his own right, when he was present as the guest of honor for that integrity unit when it opened up within a lot of fanfare. It was at the Tyler Perry Studios. They had a big shindig there. And Andrew Young was the guest of honor. I'll never forget, and I was so proud of him and thankful to him for doing this. He raised the issue of Imam Jamil in his remarks. And I know it caught a lot of folk that were present there, including Mr. Howard, by surprise. That should have been a sufficient enough of a wake-up call for him, you know, to do the right thing before, you know, his re-election campaign, and thank goodness he lost, went into high gear. He had an opportunity to revisit it on the back of what Andrew Young had to say, but he stuck to his opportunistic and oppressive guns. And I'm thankful that he ended up paying a political price for it, and that this replacement of his appears to be keeping her word on looking into this case.
He had an opportunity to
Yes,
act
he
on it
did.
at the end. I mean, there were several requests that went to his office. The request that went to Fani Willis also went to his office as he was exiting. He could have taken care of this case. So, you know, we're grateful. We're grateful that it's open now, alhamdulillah, and that it's being looked at with scrutiny. So we are grateful for that. Andrew Young is also, you know, we can't go through this without saying, you know, Imam Jamil was facing the death penalty on this case.
That's right.
And Andrew Young testified on his behalf and testified as to his involvement in the community and his impact on the community. And his testimony arguably could be the reason why Imam Jamil is still alive and why he faces life rather than facing the death penalty. So we're grateful to him for doing that And he is an example of how, political activists or people in office can make a difference if they just, fearlessly stand up for what is blatantly, obviously the right thing to do.
That's right. I was present when he testified during the sentencing phase after Imam Jamil was found guilty, and went to the sentencing part of the trial where it was to be determined whether Imam Jamil would receive the death penalty or a life sentence. And yes, I believe that it was because of Andrew Young, what he had to say about Imam Jamil, the person that he had known for so many years, and his legacy and the impact that he had on the west end of Atlanta, cleaning it up, stabilizing it, him and his community, that the jury came back with a decision to spare his life, at least in the immediate sense of a death penalty. I should also note that the late Coretta Scott King also had something. She made her mark on this case, and ended up being attacked for it when she gave the statement to us that and gave us permission to publicize it during the when the trial was still underway, just calling for a fair trial. The widow of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and an icon in her own right, being attacked for simply calling for Imam Jamil Al-Amin to get a fair trial. And I should also note that I was profoundly disappointed, and remain so to this day, even though he's no longer with us. I was profoundly disappointed with the late John Lewis, who had this relationship with Imam Jamil going back decades, for not stepping up when we requested of him to just do the same thing that Coretta Scott King did and call for a fair trial. He remained silent. And it goes to show, how politics can both, it can be a corrupting and paralyzing force when, people don't have the strength and integrity to do the right thing. My sister, I knew that this hour was going to go fast. We're at the end of it. I want to share a little message from one of the other prominent supporters of Imam Jamil before we completely end the broadcast. Before doing that, I want to give you an opportunity to share any last thoughts, any parting thoughts that you'd like to share with the viewing audience, keeping in mind that you have an international audience. You've got men and women in South Africa. You've got men and women in parts of Europe and also the United States, and who knows where else, that are tuned in live to this broadcast through a number of platforms, and some who will hear it later. What is your parting message to those who have known about Imam Jamil's case and those who are just learning about his case and who would like to know more? What is your parting message to them?
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank you for this platform, Hajj Mauri, and thank you for your ongoing commitment over time. People come in and out of this, and I'm new to this advocacy, but you have endured for decades. And the first thing I would say to everyone is educate yourself. And I know you may not do it, but here's your book. And so this book basically outlines everything. I recommend people get it. If you don't know who Imam Jamil is, get this book and learn who he is a bit, because he is a civil rights icon. He is a humanitarian. To me, he is, a servant of Allah. He's humble. He remains humble. He is spiritually well, alhamdulillah. But we really have a duty, not just to Imam Jamil, but Imam Jamil exemplifies the wrongful incarceration of so many who are wrongfully convicted, so many who end up with inadequate representation. There are so many injustices in the system. His medical neglect is not isolated to him. So many inmates are medically neglected. So we really have a duty as a Muslim community and a community at large to advocate for people who cannot advocate for themselves, to ensure that when any of our leaders are taken, that they are treated justly, and that if there is a wrongful conviction, that we bring light to it, and that we speak truth to power fearlessly, because there definitely is, just like Hajj Mauri said, there is a fear tactic used. If you advocate for Imam Jamil, there's a fear tactic that's used to make you, step back. But we have a duty to advocate for justice. We have a duty to speak truth to power. We have a duty to continue on this mission. So I urge as many people as possible to please show up at USP Tucson, August 15th, 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. to just show them and show the world, show Imam Jamil that we stand with him and that we demand justice for him. So I appreciate your efforts, Hajj Mauri. May Allah reward you for your ongoing commitment to political prisoners, not just Imam Jamil. You are committed to this cause, and you set an example for all of us. So may Allah reward you.
Amin. And you, sister, the only thing I would amend your statement with is to emphasize the fact that Imam Jamil is more properly described as a human rights advocate. And human rights trumps civil rights.
Of course.
And I thank you for the involvement that you have in this case, and the work that you've been doing, that I'm just learning about, the work that you have done, on behalf of the disadvantaged, the marginalized, those who are most in need of support, the work that you have done up until now for the many of them. And may Allah Ta'ala continue to bless you in your practice. And may Allah Ta'ala continue to strengthen and magnify your voice. Thank you for being with us, sister. I want to share something in conclusion from a brother who would like to be present. He's not going to be able to be present, but his voice will be heard, inshallah ta'ala. And that is from our good brother, Cornell West, Dr. Cornell West. One of the benefits of the book, in fact, the two books that Sister Maha raised and showed you, the first one is a book, Revolution by the Book, which is authored by Imam Jamil. This is a very, very, very important book for those who would like to understand the fundamentals of Islam, and the revolutionary impact that the Quran and the prophetic Sunnah can have for an individual and for society. That's what that book is all about. So if you want to understand how Imam Jamil Abdullah Al-Amin thinks, and also understand Islam and the fundamentals of Islam and the role that these fundamentals can play in bringing about revolutionary change, that is a book for you to read, Revolution by the Book. The book that we published, the imprisonment of Imam Jamil Abdullah Al-Amin, Is It a Government Conspiracy? This is a book that the value behind it is the fact that it contains many voices. It's not just the voice of Brother Saalakhan, it many voices, and also history on one of the most turbulent decades in American history, the 1960s. That whole cultural, social, political revolution that took place during that period. You're going to learn quite a bit about, what that period was all about. With that said, I want to share one of the closing essays in the book by Dr. Cornell West. He titled it, "Let Not Fear of Other People Prevent One of You from Speaking the Truth if He Knows It." This is what he wrote, specifically for this book. He said, "The Black freedom struggle is the greatest tradition of spiritual fortitude and moral courage in the modern world. In the face of white supremacist hatred, capitalist greed, and American terror, for over 400 years, we have unleashed magnificent love warriors and lion-hearted fighters for Black honor and human self-determination. Imam Jamil Abdullah Al-Amin, formerly known as H. Rab Brown, belongs within the pantheon of the cloud of witnesses who sacrificed life and limb to keep alive the Black freedom struggle. Born in Louisiana, educated at Southern University and Howard University, as well as nurtured in the streets and roads of Mississippi, Imam Jamil Abdullah Amin emerged as a bold son of Malcolm X, namely a genuine lover of Black people and a fearless spokesman for Black self-respect, self-defense, and self-determination. The Black freedom struggle has always been an anti-terrorist movement, a spiritual and physical war against niggerization and repression. Niggerization keeps Black people scared, intimidated, and fearful of white supremacist power. Repression keeps Black people incarcerated and imprisoned, or assassinated and subordinated. The fundamental aim of a great freedom fighter like Imam Jamil Abdullah Amin has been to deniggerize himself and others and preserve his dignity and grace in the face of massive and perpetual U.S. state repression. His classic autobiography, Die Nigger Died, published in 1969, is a twofold cry of the heart to both extricate the fear and enact the love that embraces death for the cause of Black honor and liberty. Like Martin Luther King Jr.'s favorite saying, quote, "I would rather be dead than afraid," end quote. Imam Jamil Abdullah Amin put his life and body on the line over and over again. Again, like Martin Luther King Jr., who emerged from the paddy wagon on his way to Reidsville State Prison in Tatnall County, Georgia, where Imam Jamil was first held before being transferred to that Supermax. From a 4-hour ride in the pitch black with a German shepherd threatening him, saying, quote, "This is the cross that we must bear for the freedom of our people," end quote. Imam Jamil Abdullah Amin, who also was incarcerated in that same prison, has paid an indescribable price for bearing a cross of service to a hatred, haunted and hunted Black people. Like Malcolm X, Imam Jamil Abdullah Amin is a revolutionary Muslim and a pioneer in Islamic liberation theology. With his powerful book, Revolution by the Book, The Rap is Live, published in 1993. His student and my dear brother, Chaplain Khalil Abdul Rashid of Harvard University, represents the best of this prophetic Islam. The cruel and atrocious treatment of Imam Jamil Abdullah Amin, from the H. Rap Brown law passed by Congress to target him and other freedom fighters, the COINTELPRO attacks on him and others, to the torturous solitary confinements in U.S. barbaric prisons, has not squelched his soul nor suffocated his spirit. He remains a deniggerized, dignified, free Black man, grounded with great scholarly and ritual fervor in his deep Muslim faith, and forever a titan in any history of the Black freedom struggle. Let us never forget his loving sacrifice and steadfast service to us. That's the end of what he had to say. And the only thing I would add to this is I want to say to the leaders of the organizations and the individual leaders of prominence who have signed on to this mobilization for Imam Jamil 2 weeks from now, on Sunday, August 15th. My prayer is that you will not just sign on in words, but that you will do as much as you possibly can to get the word out through your network that Muslims must be present in large numbers, that you will do your best to organize transportation, to make it easy for those within your network to get there. It's one thing to say who we are, but it's another to be who we say we are. talk is cheap. Please, better late than never when it comes to issues of struggle. This is another opportunity for us to redeem ourselves. On the case of Imam Jamil Abdullah Amin, later on the case of Dr. Afia Siddiqui in September and October, and for the many other faceless and voiceless political prisoners, many of them Muslim, whose cases might not otherwise receive the light of day. There is a precedent-setting potential to these two cases, Imam Jamil and Dr. Afia Siddiqui. So again, better late than never. Better late than never. Imam Ali ibn Abu Talib, who was from the household of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and one of the four rightly guided Rashidun caliphs. Imam Ali said, there are three categories of Muslims who are cut off from the blessings of paradise. Oppressors, those who aid and abet oppression, those who aid and abet oppression, and those who tolerate oppression. It's time to rise up. It's time to take a stand. It's time to show who we are. This is an opportunity for redemption. Okay, let's step up to the opportunity and do what justice requires of us to do. And with that, we conclude as we normally do. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim wal Asr. Innal insana lafi khusr. Illa alladhina amanu wa amalu salihati. Wa tawassaw bil haqq. Wa tawassaw bis sabr. Which means in translation of the meaning, in the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, by the token of time through the ages, verily humanity is in loss, except those who believe and do good, and exhort one another to truth, and exhort one another to patiently persevere. Peace be unto you. Assalamu alaikum.